Well, good morning, and welcome to the Chamber, Mayoral, and House District 13 Issues Forum. I am Bart Darrell, member of the Greater Owensboro Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and currently the chair of the Advocacy Committee. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to this very, very important forum. One of the Chamber's goals, one of our primary goals, is a prosperous community, both economically, culturally, and from a health standpoint. And to make sure those goals are accomplished, we have to have an engaged community. And part of that civic engagement is voting. But it's not just about voting, it's also about being an informed voter. And that's where forums like this come into play. And while we at the Chamber are so proud to sponsor and the forums of this nature so that we can assist you, the public, and our Chamber members on being that truly informed voter. The Chamber is committed to the fundamentals of democracy, and there's nothing more fundamental to democracy than opportunities like this for discourse and engagement between candidates. And so at this time, I would like to introduce the mayoral candidates for this year. Mayor Tom Watson, City Commissioner Larry Condor, City Commissioner Pam Smith Wright, and Drayson Williams. And not only do I want to thank them for being part of this forum, but I also want to thank them for their commitment to our community and to public service. I would also like to introduce at this time our House District 13 candidates, Representative Jim Glenn and former Representative DJ Johnson. I also want to thank OCTC for providing this great facility for us to have this forum and give all of you the opportunity to engage along with our candidates. Also, finally, a thanks to the Owensboro Neighborhood Alliance for their input and support in this initiative. Now, it is my privilege to introduce to you your moderator, who has done this more than a time or two, the moderator of all moderators from the Owensboro Messenger Enquirer, Mr. Matt Francis.
As Bart said, I'm Matt Francis. I'm the executive editor of the Messenger Enquirer, and I will be moderating today's forum. I want to talk a little bit about the format that we'll be using today. We're going to start with 60-second opening statements, and how we determine the order for this is simply by how the candidates appear on the ballot. So Larry Condor will go first, Pam Smith Wright will go second, Tom Watson will go third, Drayson Williams will go fourth. Once we finish the opening statements, we will move on to the question and answer session. Those will be 90 seconds each, and again, we'll continue following the same order. Since Larry Condor went first on the opening statement, we will start with Pam Smith Wright. Second question will go to Tom Watson. Third question will go to Drayson Williams. Fourth question will go to Larry Condor, and so forth. All the candidates will answer each question. They'll just be going in a little bit different order. And then once we finish the questions, we will have 6 today. We will then move on to the closing statements, and for that, we will go in reverse ballot order. So Drayson Williams will go first, Tom Watson will go second, Pam Smith Wright will go third, and Larry Condor will wrap it up. I also wanted to let you know that today's forum will be conducted via Zoom, and we're doing it this way because of commissioner availability. Larry Condor is actually in the hospital today, and that is why on the screen you will just see his name while you'll see the video of everyone else. So with that being said, let's start the 2020 Mayoral Forum. Okay, then we'll start with the opening statements, and Larry Condor, you'll be first.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you to the Chamber, Candace, and everyone else to be able to put this on for everyone to actually be introduced to everyone. COVID-19 has caused issues where we can't traditionally get out and campaign like we'd love to be able to, like all of us want to do, especially to talk to the people of Owensboro to see what's on their mind, what's going on in their lives, and what else can be helped with. Looking at this election, we came in, myself, Mayor Watson, and Pam Smith Wright in 2017, and had a lot of hard work to do. That work is paying off, both financially and especially in our safety sectors and some other sectors that we need to be working on. Going forward, it will be imperative that we take advantage of the new habits that we just formed with COVID-19 on how we live, on how we work, and how we play. And how we're going to be able to do that is being able to see that future, to be able to make sure that our children enjoy coming back to Owensboro and living here forever. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Now we'll go to Pam Smith Wright. You'll have 60 seconds for your opening.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this forum and giving me the opportunity to tell you why the last 9.5 years as your city commissioner has prepared me for being your next mayor. As the longest serving female and the first woman mayor pro tem, I have been in training for this office that I now seek. I know how to work with the staff and all the important partners in our city to move it forward. The Chamber, the EDC, the Tourist Commission, these are all important parts of our community. We have lots of issues we need to discuss, and that's our homelessness, drugs, and listening to our youth. And I ask that you will give me a chance to be your mayor and to make this a better place for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Tom Watson, you have 60 seconds for your opening.
Well, good morning to everyone, and welcome to another mayoral forum. It just seemed like yesterday, we were doing these things 4 years ago, and I've been very humbled and honored to have the opportunity to serve as your mayor the last 4 years. We did come in at difficult times, and I think our city staff was so used to working with very little that when we started doing well, they just continued to do well. And we really need to thank most of them for all this, that elected officials had something to do with it, but the staff in our community really have done a wonderful job. I ask for your vote. I'm the number 3 on the ballot. I've done this job before. Things that are being brought up, I probably have already had some interest in doing in the last 8 years that I've served. We have a wonderful community. We have made progress, and what sets me apart from the rest of the candidates is the relationships I've built in Washington and in Frankfurt and in Indianapolis and other places to keep us connected to where progress can occur. And progress has occurred in Owensboro, and it will continue to occur as long as we work together as a team. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Drayson Williams, 60 seconds for your opening.
Good morning, everyone. I'm running for mayor because I'm born and raised in Owensboro. I've went all across this nation and world telling people about the good things that are happening in Owensboro. But since I've been away and I've been coming back, I've noticed that there's a lot of people hurting right now. There's a lot of people who do not feel that their voices have been heard. And so I'm running on a new narrative. It's about all of us having an opportunity to engage in the decision-making process, the vision-making process for this city. And it's for women, it's for poor working folks who feel like they have something to say, but for far too long, no one's listened. I want all of us to come to the table as a city and really begin the community building process. For far too long, we focused on buildings in community, but I think it's time to switch our priorities and start community building. Thank you.
Thank you, Drayson. Okay, we'll move into the question and answer session now. As I said, we will start the first question with Pam Smith Wright. I'll ask the question when each candidate is finished. I'll move on to the next candidate. If you need me to repeat the question, just ask and I'll certainly do so. Thank you. First question, Pam, what do you think is the most important role for the mayor of Owensboro, and how would you distinguish yourself in that role?
Well, number one, I think that the most important role as a mayor is to unite our community. And how I would do that is to maybe form a task force where people from all walks of life would come together and set out goals that they think that this city should accomplish. I think the mayor should be the face of this community and should go out and, of course, try to bring in new revenue, whether it be through businesses or otherwise. You have to be able to communicate with people. And I feel that I can do that because I have been on the Kentucky League of Cities Board of Directors for the last 6 years. And I have connections there where I can not only work on the local level, but on the state level.
Thank you, Pam. Tom Watson.
Yes, Matt, thank you. It's a good question. I've had the opportunity to do this job for 8 years, so I think I have a good understanding of what it takes. And, you know, in a city manager form of government, it's a little different than some governments that have a strong mayor form. And in our aspect, we have to learn to work with a city manager who takes care of operations. And the mayor and the city commission will set policy and ask the city manager to implement the policy. As time goes on, I've had 3 city managers, 3 assistant city managers, three attorneys, 3 police chiefs, 3 fire chiefs. And so I've had the opportunity to see all types of personalities that are involved in local government. And if you don't have a strong working relationship with fiscal court, Frankfurt and Washington, it puts you behind the 8 ball. And I think that's what we've proven in the last 4 years, you know, with the ability to apply for grants and to write the grants the proper way. And, you know, when you talk about bringing the community together, you can be a cheerleader, but it's more than that. It's being able to sit down with decision makers all across this country and see what's best for our community and have the ability to bring those things home. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Drayson Williams.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. What do you think is the most important role for the mayor of Owensboro, and how would you distinguish yourself in that role?
Yes. So I believe the most important role for a mayor, especially during this specific time, is to be not only the face of the city, but being someone who's able to verbalize what the values of our city is. And that's not just the few people who usually are able to sit at the table, but that's for the teacher, that's for the person who is still struggling with addiction. It's being able to listen to all of those voices and creating a collective story, and then working with the great people we have in city government to create strategies and policies around what the people are saying that they need. You know, for far too long, we've left certain people out. A lot of people don't feel heard by certain elected officials. And we're in a time where people are crying out to be heard. And so in this moment, in COVID-19, in the racial uprisings, it's imperative that we have a leader who is listening, who is amongst the people, who knows what their stories are, and then who can take those stories to the great people we have in City Hall and create strategies around how we can create solutions that address those issues. Those issues have been around a long time. They just need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Drayson. Larry Condor.
Thank you, Matt. The mayor's position basically sets the agenda for not only the commission itself, but for the rest of the city. It's the bully pulpit, whether you want to use it to be a cheerleader, or if you want to use it to just be financially responsible, or whatever the case may be. Your vision for the city, of what you see for the next 4 years, is on your face. Is every time you speak, each person you talk to, each elected official in Frankfurt, Washington, D.C., or whatever the case may be, you are that person, is who you are. Relationships are extremely valuable to move Owensboro forward, and always have been, always will be. Never discount that. But I also know that there are certain individuals that also need to be a part of these discussions that hasn't been for a long, long time. And so in setting that agenda collectively with the city commission that is on board with yourself, which is also extremely important, to be able to bring together, by the rule of 3, that you have to have 3 votes to get something through. to get something done, that you can actually do that on a consistent basis to be able to address the vision that you want the city to be for the next 4 years. And that vision can be great and it can be better.
Thank you, Larry. Question number 2, we will start with Tom Watson. Tom, earlier this year, the Davis Fiscal Court deadlocked 2-2 on a non-discrimination or fairness ordinance. And at the time, the supporters of that ordinance talked about that they were going to regroup and approach the city about a similar ordinance. So we can expect that issue will come to the forefront for the next city commission. So with this being a chamber forum and from an economic development perspective, some corporate leaders have talked about the lack of a fairness ordinance hindering executive recruitment. And it also seems to be an issue that younger professionals are passionate about and supportive of. So my question is 2 parts. 1, will you commit to bringing a fairness ordinance to a vote? And 2, what type of fairness ordinance would you be willing to support, if any?
Well, I've made my position pretty clear. You know, I'm not opposed to supporting whatever fiscal court decides to do. I think this is no different than the smoking ban that Reed Hare and I did back in 2000 and something. You know, we have so many pockets of the county inside the city that it's almost unenforceable. And I think once you present a fairness ordinance to the elected officials, it should be exactly what you want. And several times I've watched through Al and the group over there work through this this issue, and it is an issue. You know, I don't want anybody to be discriminated against. I was discriminated against when I applied for a job with the city of Owensboro. I understand discrimination. I was part of the team that led the discussions for prosthetics and orthotics on the American Disabilities Act in Washington. You know, I understand it, but it needs to have some teeth. It needs to be enforceable, and I'm not so sure that you can do that by just isolating it inside the city. You know, that's my biggest thing. I think it's poor public policy. You know, if businesses are so interested in having a fairness ordinance, if they do the right thing, I don't believe we need one. It's on them to do the right thing as well. So, and as Larry said, it takes 3 votes. So if 3 commissioners decide they want to put that on the agenda, I can't stop it. I just don't think it's good public policy to try and, when you have an apartment complex that's on one street and 2 streets over, there's another apartment complex that's in the county. I don't know how you can do that and enforce it. Yes, sir?
I was just noting time.
Oh, what were you pointing at?
Hannah.
Oh, I don't see Hannah. So, all right. And second part of the question was, I'm sorry.
We'll move on, Tom. We need to time's up, so we'll
Okay.
move on. We'll move on to Drayson Williams. Drayson, that was a long-winded question, so I am going to repeat it. Will you commit to bringing a fairness ordinance to a vote? And what type of fairness ordinance would you be willing to support, if any?
I am a history major. I'm also, if you can't see, a Black man. And so a lot of the times, you know, we can't necessarily wait on public opinion to change to protect people. And so, yes, I am definitely for a fairness ordinance, especially around housing and in particular housing and employment. You know, a lot of the times we think that the role of government is to sort of stay out of these sort of issues. But the truth is, we want Owensboro to not only be able to attract businesses, but to be home for people. And there are people here, whether some of us don't want to admit it or not, who identify as LGBTQIA. And until we show them and protect them in whatever capacity, they will not feel home here. And so for me, this is what we do because they deserve to have a place, their hometown, to feel like they matter here, that they will be protected here, and that they're valued here. And the fairness ordinance would be just one way we can do that for our brothers and sisters who are LGBTQIA. It's a no-brainer.
Thank you, Drayson. Larry Conder.
Thank you, Matt. I would sometimes like to really call this not necessarily a fairness ordinance, but a non-discrimination ordinance. But we'll go with that as it is today, okay? Whenever each one of us as a politically elected official, whenever we swear an oath before we take office, we swear an oath to uphold the laws of the Constitution of the United States, state of Kentucky, and all, therefore, laws and ordinances that are local that we have on the books. And so recently you had a Supreme Court that further defined the word sex, what that meant. And in the context of employment, specifically, it did that. So that's on the books. So if any official that gets voted in, whoever you are, and you make that oath, you are first and foremost agreeing that what has been approved, that you will uphold. That is our duty to do so. And that law applied to employment. Move to the next piece of that. Will that be able to apply that into public housing, into public accommodations? In time, probably so, that'll happen. Some lawsuit's going to make this get all the way up to the Supreme Court again to affirm the rights of the LGBTQAI plus community. But today, in doing this, I've said this for almost 5 years now. All are welcome. And an ordinance that the city of Owensboro can put together, similar to what Davis County Fiscal Court did. There's a little bit of tweaks that need to be done to that. But that sends a signal to everyone that we know the Supreme Court's going to affirm us because they already have. We're just getting in front of the ball right now so people understand that we know what needs to happen and we're going to do it on our own. So we are good and we are doing this for everyone else outside of this community and especially those in this community.
Pam Smith Wright is not on the call. She's dropped the call and I'm not sure what we are going to do to get her back on. Hannah's working with her right now to get her on the call, but Matt, I guess we go ahead and advance to the next because
she is working on calling in right now.
Oh,
Should be
okay.
a second.
There she is. Okay. Pam, do you need Matt to repeat the question? Matt, you want to go ahead and take it over?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat the question, Pam. We're on question 2, and this is about the fairness ordinance or the non-discrimination ordinance. The question is 2 parts. Are you willing to bring a fairness ordinance to a vote? And 2, what type of fairness ordinance would you be willing to support, if any?
In answer to the first question, yes, I would be willing to bring a fairness ordinance to a vote. And the reason for that is because being a woman of color, I know the problems that we face as not being in the mainstream, as you could say. And could you tell me what the second part of that question was, please?
What type of fairness ordinance would you be willing to support, if any?
Okay. I would be willing to support a fairness ordinance where all people are treated equally in the workplace and housing and all of those things, which are not being done at this particular time. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Okay, question 3, we will start with Drayson Williams. So Drayson, downtown has clearly made huge strides in recent years and is a source of pride for Owensboro. But there are still areas for improvement, notably attracting people to live downtown and filling some of the empty storefronts that we still have. What do you think needs to be done in order to get different price points for downtown housing and also make it easier for businesses to operate downtown?
Yes, so I've been doing a lot of research on the benefits of downtown. And, first I think it's important to make the case to the community why it's important to invest in our downtown. Every community needs a center where everyone all over the city can come and fellowship with one another. And that's the first thing we must do. And then the next thing is what are identify the type of businesses that we want, that the community wants downtown, whether that's more restaurants, whether that's investing in the museum we already have downtown that could be a great attraction. It's, and one way to do that is, we have many small businesses that are looking to grow, that may need some mentorship or technical support from the Chamber of Commerce. And there are opportunities to reach out and identify those businesses that we believe would be a great addition to our downtown, and working with them on budgeting. Is there a way to help you with, a small business loan, grants for developing developing the area for your particular business. There are many opportunities, but first it's identifying what the community wants downtown.
Thanks, Drayson. Larry Conder.
Thank you, Matt. Having been associated with a lot of the different things that have gone on in our beautiful downtown today over at least the last 12 years, there are a couple of things that have happened, or not have happened actually, that needed to be addressed and still need to. We've got the core that's actually been working well. We have a couple other things that need to be built out. And when you talk about affordable housing has a lot of different definitions for a lot of different people. And most of the time, we could build out at least 300 apartments at $750 a pop and fill them up probably in less than 90 days. When you get to $1,200, that's a problem in Owensboro. And it really is. Now, to me, people can afford affordable housing in that manner. And then when it comes to buildings or businesses, we have to have those individuals that can live there to spend the money, but also those individuals coming in to work downtown also. That foot traffic has got to be there. And there are certain little issues that we can address of pathing of streets and speed and different things like that that is ongoing. But we also really need to engage those property owners that are there, that not only the ones from the past, but for here currently, where they have significant footprints that are really being underutilized. And what can they be used for to be able to lift up the rest of our downtown and spread it out both west and east, especially to the northwest.
Thanks, Larry. Pam Smith, right?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. What needs to be done in order to get different price points for downtown housing and also make it easier for businesses to operate downtown?
I think that what we need to do, there are a lot of moving parts to downtown, and we have all of these properties that are, some of them are boarded up, are vacant, that we could take those properties and turn them into housing for low-income folks. And I think we need a grocery store downtown that would give people that vision of living downtown. I mean, what's the point of living downtown when you still have to drive, all the way out to Kroger or all the way out to Sam's or wherever, when you can do your local shopping? I mean, everybody needs milk, bread, and those kind of things. And if we had those kind of things downtown, that would give people the desire to move down there. Not only will the residents have access to those stores, so would people who are in business. They may just need to run to a store for something. So I think that we need to think about that and try to give people a little push to come downtown, and if that means a little help in a loan application or whatever it would take for them to open a business, to mentor people. And that's what I think our city is liking. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Tom Watson.
Thank you, Matt. I think the work that's been done downtown is obviously tremendous. And it's getting residents and people to live downtown is just another phase of what was going on to try and get downtown moving in the right direction. it's going to be consumer driven. I'm not sure the government can design something that specifically can get people downtown. I don't believe we can subsidize developers downtown to make only $750 a month apartments. It has to be consumer driven, and it takes a long time to try and phase in the residential and the Am I still there? Hello? Well, I don't know what that was.
It was me being reconnected. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. As I said, I think it's a phase-in problem. I know that the millennials are not really interested, and it seems like them buying houses and cars, and they want to be able to ride their bikes and be able to move around, foot traffic. But you have to find a developer that's willing to take a chance on the price point in the apartments. And this is a problem, but it needs to be a problem that the community decides about to take on, and not just government. We can assist, but we shouldn't be the ones to carry the load exactly, especially from the financial side. There's very little land left to really do a lot of construction downtown. So it has to be well thought out, and there are special consultants that can come in and help us do this. I don't know that I have the capability.
I need to jump in. Time is up on this question. Thank you. Fourth question, we'll move to Larry Conder. I think it was 5 years ago that the City Commission passed an ordinance to eliminate primary elections, and some of the reasons given were that the races are nonpartisan, it saves money, and so forth. But what we've ended up with are 16 candidates on the ballot for City Commission, and that makes it difficult to simply host a forum like this, let alone for voters to narrow down who they're going to choose. So with that in mind, yes or no, do you support reinstating primary elections? If so, why? And if not, why not? Thank you.
Yes. I think I was quick enough. Yes. I mean, to do this, to keep having this issue where people they don't even know who you are. They have no idea what your ID, what your vision is, what you stand for. It's gotten way out of hand. And it has to come back. It has to come back in earnest, back to hopefully the way it was before, where you had a primary, bringing your mayoral candidates down to 2 and the city commissioner candidates down to 8. That has to happen. It's the only way that you're going to be able to understand, really, instead of it being a middle school popularity contest that's only about your name, that it actually becomes a true and honest election, that people want to be good servant leaders. And you find that out by weeding out those that really are just there for whatever reason, instead of the right reason, which is to be a true servant leader.
Thank you, Larry. Pam Smith, right?
Yes. Well, I'm one of the people who voted for us to not have a primary. And my reasoning for that was, it should not be about who has the most money wins. And that's what it seemed to me at the time when I was running, that if you had a lot of money, you could put up more signs, you could put up more billboards, you could do all these things. And so that meant that you were the person, but that's not necessarily true. And I felt that if we had people who were able to use the process, because we all have a right to run for public office, whether we have money or not. And you see what has happened. This has given all of those people who may not have had money to run in a primary plus a general election, the choice and the chance to run for public office.
Thanks, Pam. Tom Watson?
If elected, that's one of the first things I'm going to do is reinstitute the primary. I've had the opportunity to run as a mayor with 4 candidates back in 2004. I understand how much better you can really distinguish between the candidates. Secondarily, I've said all along, and any elected official that doesn't believe that, they need to get out, that seat belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to anybody else. And if you've got 38, 39% of the people voting, and they're only voting because somebody does have the most signs or somebody they know, without really understanding where they stand on all the different things that come before the city commission, it's just not fair. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit selfish to do it that way. And I'm dead set against not ever having the opportunity to have a primary to and move forward into the general election. I think it's the best way to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Jason Williams?
Yes, I'm definitely for reinstituting a primary, and I'm not going to make the case that it's about money because, if you're on the outside, it's always going to be difficult for you to get certain people to sponsor you or to donate to your campaign. So it's really not about that. What it is about is making it a little easier for people to be civically engaged. It's difficult when there's 16 candidates or even 4 mayors candidates for you to actually be able to engage critically with what each candidate is saying, policy arguments. At this point, we're realizing that if you are a leader, it should be your goal to encourage and make it easier for people to be civically engaged. And this primary process only helps with that by limiting the candidates that you have to get to know, that you got to figure out who's donating here and there. And it helps you to be able to critically engage with their policy, with what they've done in the past, who's donating to them. So I'm definitely for that policy.
Thank you, Jason. Next question, and Pam, we'll start with you. Owensboro has always prided itself on being a great place to raise a family, and rightfully so. A low crime rate has always been one of the many family-friendly qualities that we've had. But over the last year to 18 months, we've seen a rise in murders, shootings, even property crimes. Why do you think crime is escalating in Owensboro, and what would you do as mayor to address the issue?
Well, first, let me start out by saying I think we have an awesome police department, but everybody needs training, more training, if that's possible. Crime has risen all over the country. So, I know that we're talking about Owensboro because that's where we live, but it is not a problem just, located here. It's nationwide. And part of that, I feel, is because of drugs. Part of it, I feel, is because of people feeling like they're not treated fairly. All of these things with the killing of Black people across our nation is horrendous, and it has to stop. And all of the things that come along with the killings and whatever is an uprising of those people who feel like they're being oppressed. So we have to find a way through education, through opportunities for these young people who have access to guns and whatever, and we have to start penalizing parents for having guns where children have access to them. So I think that it's a major problem, but I think Owensboro, Kentucky, if anybody can fix it, we can fix it. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Tom Watson?
I think for 8 years before I got there, the police department and all our public safety guys, we're kind of, left out of the success that was going on in Owensboro. And that put us behind a little bit. I think the problem with the breakdown of the family is a huge issue. I think the mental health issues that are in our community and other communities is a big issue that escalates crime. I know that Vanderburgh County just got a HIDTA designation, which is what I've been working on for 7, 8, 10 months. And generally what happens when federal money comes into a neighboring county, they'll move the troublemakers kind of moved to the next biggest place, and it's Owensboro. So there's methamphetamine problems, there's opioid problems. There are a lot of things that have to be addressed, but you have to do it with a strong and appropriate police department. And I think we have that. I think our sheriff's department is strong and appropriate, and you have to support them. And I'm proud to say that I was just got an endorsement from the FOP last week, and because I do support law enforcement. I don't know how to do law enforcement. I don't have the courage to walk into a house with all that trouble, but we have people that are trained, and the COVID has put us behind a little bit because the academy's been closed. So our policemen are shorthanded a little bit right now, but you know, it is that, like Pam said, it's all over the country, and mainly because this COVID thing has increased people's lack of position and lack of things to do. So I believe that with the proper education, again, starting at the lowest level, 2-3 years old, and teach these children about
Tom, watch the time, please. Thanks, Tom. Drayson Williams.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely, no problem. How do you think crime is escalating in Owensboro, and what would you do as mayor to address the issue?
Yes, so I may view crime just a little bit differently or the solution to crime just a little bit differently. I believe that when we see an uptick in crime, we should be looking at the conditions that are causing it, because a lot of the times we look at the people and say the people are the problem when there's conditions that make crime, that promote crime. And so in particular, I think we look at COVID-19 that's put more people in their home, that's making more people feel unstable in their current situation. We look at 25% of the people struggling to pay rent. They're cost burdened. They were cost burdened before COVID-19. We look at 22% of kids in poverty, 16% of adults, families in poverty locally, and more young people considering suicide. And so all of these conditions do not help to promote a safe community. And so one way I believe that we address this issue is to address the conditions. How do we make sure that people are stable in their housing? How do we make sure that kids have food? How do we make sure that young people have mental health services when they have those feelings of suicide? So it's about addressing the condition, and those conditions aren't always addressed by more police. Now, we don't have to defund the police, but they're not addressed by more police, and that's not the solution.
Thank you, Drayson. Larry Condor.
Thank you, Matt. This issue of safety being the forefront of what makes Owensboro just the great place it is to live, work, and play. It comes down to one issue that continues to rise, and that's the use of methamphetamine. Through some of the help of Senator McConnell in diverting some funds, along with Tom Watson, on changing it from opioid use to methamphetamine use, some of those funds may be coming available soon to really begin a process where we look at how methamphetamine, being so cheap, being so easy to get, has affected our community, our families, our jobs, our businesses, our prisons, our jails, our courts. You go on and on and on about that one issue of how it is so important that over 80% of the cases that are heard in court, especially family court, directly are relatable to methamphetamine. And you can look at all of the shootings that we've had. You can look at gang activity, whatever the case may be. Get down to the root of it. You're going to find there's a meth issue there. Somehow, some way, it's going to be there. So instead of us continue to ask, what's wrong with you? We should ask each person, what happened to you to make you want to go down that path?
Thanks, Larry. moving on to the next question, and Tom, we'll start with you on that. And it's going to focus on recruitment and retention for businesses. And I think we've seen in Owensboro the ability to recruit young talent to Owensboro has improved. We still struggle a bit to retain that talent. So my question is, how do we stay attractive as a community that successfully recruits and retains talent? And is there an opportunity to capitalize on the growth of virtual workplaces that we've seen over this year?
Well, I think we capitalize on the progress that we've made in the past few years. Anybody that comes to Owensboro, always, when I'm greeting all these groups all the time as mayor, I always tell people, if we can get you to Owensboro for a little bit of time, week or 2 or 3 weeks, most of the time we can keep you. But since we're kind of off the beaten path, it's difficult for us to be, for access, for people just to drive through Owensboro. Thankfully, we've got I-165 moving. Hopefully, we're working with the Mid-State Corridor and Huntingburg. I see you now, Hannah. 1 minute. Thank you. Trying to keep us through in transportation aspect so that we can get people here and keep them here. I think we've got great businesses. They're growing. This COVID thing has really shown a lot of companies that you can work from home. It's also shown a lot of people how important our teachers are while they're trying to be at home and work at home and take care of their children. So I think our faith-based community are safe, our community that's safe. And I think we're in the top 10 or 11 in millennial, in this recent study I read somewhere that they think that we're a good place to live. So, it's a combination of factors, and not just one thing is going to keep us going in the right direction, other than we should continue to show progress. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Drayson?
Repeat the question, please.
Absolutely. How do we stay attractive as a community that successfully recruits and retains younger talent? And is there an opportunity to capitalize on the growth of virtual workplaces that we've seen over this past year?
Yes, definitely. As the youngest candidate, I was born and raised in Owensboro, and I knew early on that there will be no opportunities for me here. The culture sometimes wasn't appealing. It just wasn't necessarily in terms of growth and inviting place. And so I think the first thing is to address the culture. It's in a fairness ordinance is a part of addressing that culture. It's saying, showing that we are a progressive city, one that's going to invite people in and make them feel at home so that they can create homes here. And so first is addressing our culture, and then, young people are looking for entertainment as well. And we definitely have to diversify our entertainment. If we're bringing them in, we need a reason to keep them, and that's jobs and entertainment. So we have to address diversify our entertainment. And on your point about virtual workspaces, I think that's important for young people, because the new jobs, the jobs that are mostly that young people are having are virtual. And so it's important that we figure out some methods of engaging young people in the workplace in that manner. I'm not sure how to do that, but I know there are some great people who can figure that out.
Thanks, Drayson. Larry Condor?
Thank you, Matt. Of course, as we've done and try to do all the time with the work that Brittany Johnson continues to do at EDC, and that Candace does at the Chamber, OCTC, Brescia, Kentucky Wesleyan, making sure that the workforce development continues there. That's the hard stuff, that we need to train and make sure that we have available for people. But once they get here, I've always asked a lot of young people that walk around downtown, why are you here? What would you come to Owensboro for? And they'll look around and they'll tell me, we love the city. We love the things that our family can do and some things like that. We're just missing a couple of little things that'll take us just right over that edge. Those things to where children, teenagers have the opportunity to not just hang out, but to actually engage in activities with possibly even older people is what they want to do. There are those individuals that are currently coming to Owensboro that just want to look and know that, yeah, okay, we're addressing some safety issues. We're doing all those different things. But what is it that can make us even bigger and better? And that's what they're looking. They're looking for that quality of life that just keeps growing, where you just don't stop and you make it available to everyone, regardless of how they're born, regardless of who they know, or regardless of what happened to them in life.
Thank you, Larry. Pam Smith, right?
I'm sorry, I need it repeated, please.
Sorry, I had it on mute. How do we stay attractive as a community that successfully recruits and retains talent? And is there an opportunity to capitalize on the growth of virtual workplaces that we've seen over the past year?
I think we stay current and recruit talent by inclusiveness. And, you know, I have done some research and stuff, and big companies like Amazon are places, are companies that are looking for places to establish their businesses where you include people who are gay and lesbian and, you know, the LGBTQ plus community. And, you know, that's one thing that's so important, that my kids left here because they didn't feel that Owensboro was all inclusive enough for them. So they went to bigger cities where there were more people that looked like them. There were more people that wanted the same things as they do. And I have a daughter that lives in Louisville. She's not real happy with that right now. And then I have a son that lives in Richmond, Virginia. And their opportunities are so much more accessible to them to grow in their occupations and in their lives. Even though we have great school systems and all of those things, we've got to start including all of our people in everything that we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Okay, so we will move on to closing statements. And as I said earlier, we will go in reverse ballot order. You'll have 60 seconds to give your closing, and we will start with Drayson Williams. Drayson?
Thank you to Candace and Mr. Matt. Thank you for holding this event. You know, I'm running because I believe that everyone is valuable, that everyone in Owensboro deserves a say in the decision-making process. And like I said in the beginning, for far too long, so many people have been left out, and it's really affected the way we see the city. This is a great city, and it's difficult to see it as great if you don't feel like the people who represent you are listening to you. And I think in order to move forward and for everyone to be a part of this city, it's going to take someone who believes that everyone is valuable, that we make sure that is true by listening to them and addressing their concerns, the concerns that have been there for so long that have went unaddressed. You know, it's time that we start to invest in the people. You know, we have the infrastructure. Thank you to the candidates. We have it. Now it's time for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Drayson. Tom Watson?
Thanks, Matt. It's good to see you again, out of your hole a little bit. You know, I'm a firm believer that we should be as self-reliant as we possibly can as a community. When you're government reliant, the government moves too slow. It's cumbersome. Leadership changes, values change, and 10 years from now, we'll still be in the same position we are now. If you're not self-reliant, and through the public school system, through the Chamber of Commerce, the EDC, our post-secondary education, you have the opportunities are there. So I believe that the more self-reliant we can be, I think the better off we're going to be. And I want to thank everybody for being on. I learned some things today from people I really didn't know that well, and I appreciate having the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Pam Smith, right?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Candy. Once again, I want to thank the Chamber for this opportunity. I'm asking for your support on November the 3rd. I hope my experience and my love for this community will cause you to give me your support and your vote. It's time for women to step up and take a leading role in our community. If not now, when? If not me, then who? Don't be fooled by folks saying women aren't tough enough. When the first man became mayor over 200 years ago, he was given a chance. I ask you to give me that same chance. I'm number 2 on the ballot, and I would appreciate your vote because it is the right time, and may the best woman win.
Thanks, Pam. And we'll wrap up with Larry Condor.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Candace, and everyone over at over the chamber. You know, today we have formed new habits, and we do live differently. We work differently. We play differently. We're set up. The city of Owensboro is really set up to take advantage of some things that is historic. This election is going to be historic. Plain matter of fact, it is. But what can we do going forward for the next 4 to 6 years to really make sure everybody feels that they're welcome to the table? That regardless of how you were born, regardless of what happened to you, that you're a part of this community, no matter what. That we can change boards, we can change some policies, we can look honestly at systemic discrimination in a good way, where everybody is supported, no matter who they are. We can do those things. So Owensboro will be fine, but is fine good enough? Fine's not good enough. We can do better, and we will. Thank you again for your time. Number 1 on the ballot.
Thanks, Larry. I'd just like to thank each of you for being here. I know this is a challenging format. I'm sure it's a challenging campaign for you. It's a challenging year for everyone, and I just appreciate what you're doing. I think all of you set a good example for what a debate should look like, what leadership should look like, and I think we're lucky that we have you on the ballot. For those of you who are watching, just a reminder that the Messenger Inquirer and the Chamber will be putting out a voter's guide in the next couple of weeks. I encourage you to check it out, be educated on the election, and go vote. So thank you all.
Okay, now I would like to explain the rules for our Kentucky House District 13 forum. Will be very similar to what we did with the mayoral forum. We will start with 60-second opening statements, and we will start with the incumbent first. So Jim Glenn will start, and then DJ Johnson will give his opening statement. We'll then move into a question and answer session. That will be 90 seconds each. Again, we will start the first question with the incumbent and then alternate from there. So so Jim Glenn will take the first question, and then the second question DJ Johnson will take first. And then we will do closing statements that will also be 60 seconds, and with that we will go reverse order. DJ Johnson will go first, Jim Glenn will go second. Okay, let's begin with our opening statements, and Jim Glenn will start us off. 60 seconds.
How are you doing? My name is Jim Glenn. I'm the state representative, 13th District. I'm in my 12th year as a state representative. In addition to that, I am a son. My mother's still alive. She's in her 90s. I'm a father. I have 2 adult children. And I was a husband. I'm a widower now. My wife passed away from cancer about 10 years ago. When I first got married, I was a graphics person. I managed about $45 million in graphics sales, so I come out of industry. Currently, I'm in 30 seconds left. Currently, I am a teacher at Owensboro Community Technical College. I'm a tenured full professor, and I teach in a broad set of areas. I teach business or management. I teach econ, finance, and marketing. I'm Jim Glenn. Appreciate your vote. November 13th, or November 3rd, I'm sorry. 13th is district.
All right, DJ Johnson, 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is DJ Johnson. I'm from Owensboro, born and raised here, graduated from Apollo in 1975, and graduated from Western in 79, where I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the field artillery. Ended up going over to Italy into a unit called the 1st of the 509th Airborne Battalion Combat Team, which does mean that I did jump out of perfectly good airplanes. But it was a great mission, great opportunity over there. I spent 11 years in the Army as a field artillery officer, finished as a captain. Once I got out of the Army, I got into small businesses. I stayed in the Washington, D.C. area for about 15 years in small business, but then came back home to Owensboro. In 2003, again, I was managing our family car wash business. You may have heard of Sparkle Boy Car Wash. We sold that a couple of years ago, and now I am working primarily at the the Senior Community Center of Owensboro, Davis County. I'm working a lot with the Meals on Wheels program, and I'm a part-time teacher. Thank you.
Okay, first question will go to you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
What do you think is the primary role of a state legislator, and what will be your top priorities if elected?
Let me start with my top priorities. Half of the state's budget is on education. I was asked when I was a city commissioner. Prior to that, I was a city commissioner, and I was asked to run for state representative because my background was education, and my wife's background was education. So I decided to say yes to help in the education area. I have educated roughly 5,000 students in the time I've been here. My wife educated probably about 4,000. So over that period of time, we've been at roughly 10,000 students we've educated in this area. Some of my students now are medical doctors. My wife, 5 of her students are currently elementary school principals. Some of my students are business people. My job is to educate as many people as I can, do the best job I can, and try to get this economy going again. That's the main job right now, trying to jumpstart the economy. So I'm focusing on that over the next 18 months.
Before we move on, let me just say, I'll ask the question once to the candidate who's going to start. If you need me to repeat the question, just ask and I'll certainly do so. DJ Johnson.
Okay, I guess first I'll talk about what is the purpose and the mission of a legislator. Basically, state legislators do 2 things. One is we create and modify laws, which sets the tone for our state. And then the second thing we do is we actually control the purse strings of the state revenues that come in. Now, the truth of the matter is the vast majority of the revenues that come in are already designated when they get to us. But there's a small percentage that we need to decide what we're going to do with those monies. And that's a very, very critical mission that we have, to use those monies, those revenues that taxpayers have given us in the best way possible. And then we, of course, as I said, do the laws. My priorities, basically I'm working on 3 things right now. One is I want to make sure that we have the most safe and secure community in the state of Kentucky here in Owensboro. Second, I've been working very closely on child welfare issues with some of the leaders in Frankfort. I'm particularly interested in foster care and adoption services. And then third, I'm working on prescription costs, particularly Medicare prescription costs. We have a prescription delivery system in Kentucky that could be much, much better organized, streamlined. That process has started. I want to continue that process when we get back to Frankfort.
The next question will focus on home rule, which is an issue that has been around for quite some time. And for those who are watching who may not be familiar with that term, home rule essentially allows governments, local governments to control their own destiny, set their own paths without being limited by state laws that some communities can find restrictive. So with that being said, this question will start with DJ Johnson. Do you support home rule? If not, why? And if so, please give an example or 2 of how you think the state could do a better job of allowing communities to determine their own future.
I do believe in home rule. And I'll start with just a little bit about the Constitution. The purpose of the Constitution was to limit government. It wasn't to empower government. And that's true at the federal and state levels. So we have a Constitution in place that is designed to keep the state and federal governments from doing crazy stuff, running rampant in our personal lives. That gets directly to the home rule issue. Because of that, I believe in it. I think there's some statewide issues that the state government must take care of, but ultimately, the people who are most in touch with the constituents, the residents, the citizenry of Kentucky are the local elected officials. And that being the case, I want to give them as much power as possible. I think rather than give you an example of what they can do, I'll just tell you what I don't want state doing. And I don't want the state dictating to the local government's requirements, but then not providing the funding for it. Or the government at the federal and state level are pretty infamous for doing that sort of thing. So I'm just going to work very hard not to do that. And that being the case, I'm just going to, every chance I get, allow the local officials to do what they need to do. And when they need my help, they've got my phone number.
Jim Glenn?
Yes, sir, I'm listening to you. Oh, start answering the question?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. Basically, my background in office, I cover basically 3 issues. 1 is education, 2 is healthcare, 3 are jobs. Those are the 3 issues I plan to focus on. As far as home rule, I have no problem with that. With the local cities trying to generate enough money to keep themselves going, as long as it doesn't impact the income that's being generated by the state in running the state system. Besides that, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Jim, you've mentioned education a couple of times, and that's the direction we'll go with the next couple of questions. Obviously, education is incredibly important to the business community and the folks that the Chamber represents, particularly having a skilled and educated workforce. With that being said, community colleges such as OCTC, where we're at today, have seen funding cuts over the last decade as compared to neighboring and what we would consider competing states like Tennessee, where community college is now free. With that in mind, would you support raising funding for community colleges?
I work for the community college, and I don't want it to sound like I'm trying to fund my own job. We have to figure out priorities. We have to figure out what's important for this state. If we want to compete with the people around us, we have to generate enough income to educate our citizens. Owensboro has 1 college degree for every 6 people. We need to change that. When I came here, it was roughly 13% of the population had a 4-year college degree. It's moved about 30% up to about 17%. We have to increase that. The state of Kentucky is at 24. We have to move toward that number if we plan to compete in this global economy. Thanks very much.
DJ Johnson.
I would say we actually agree on this issue more than we could possibly disagree on it. And with that, I will say that I have always made the community college system, particularly OCTC, a priority of mine. I voted for funding for grants for OCTC when I was the state representative. I will continue to do so. And my belief is this: we owe it to our children, our students, our young adults to help them identify what it is that they want to do with their lives, what is their passion, and then help them achieve the education they need to go after those passions, to chase those dreams. And I think the community college system is a key factor in that. I'm all for anyone who wants to get a 4-year degree, absolutely to do it. When they go to OCTC, they should be looking to get a 4-year degree right from that. But in step 1, we need to make sure that they have the opportunity to chase the dream they want.
All right, so we'll stick with you, DJ, and we'll move on to 4-year colleges. And I just was reading a study that said since 2008, Kentucky ranked in the 10 worst states in the nation in terms of funding cuts to higher education. If you look at the nearest state 4-year state university to Owensboro, I think 19% of its total budget is now comes from state funding, and that of course shifts costs to students, families, and has to make 4-year education unattainable for some Kentuckians. So my question is, do you see that as simply the new norm for state universities, or do you have a plan to reverse this slide?
Well, I think first off, we have to take into effect what COVID is going to do. And let's just be honest, this next budget session, which is not supposed to be a budget session, but because of COVID, it's turning into one. We're going to be facing challenges we've never faced before. So one, we have to deal with that short term, and when I say short term, a couple of years challenge, and then we can talk about long term. It's going to be very difficult for anything to get additional funding in this new budget, given the revenue loss that we're probably dealing with. Having said that, there are some priorities that we must keep up at the top of the list. For me, those priorities are safety and security, education, because education leads to trained and diverse workforce that we must have if we're going to bring even more revenues into the state, new industries. So short answer, it's going to be very, very tough. Anyone tells you different is not being honest with you. Long term, of course, we've got to find a way to get those 4-year degrees in place so that we can have a trained workforce so that we can have growth in Kentucky.
Jim Glenn?
Yes, sir, I'm listening to you. Oh, you want me to start answering the question?
I do.
To compete in the global economy, you need 3 things. 1 is technology. 2 is education. 3 is healthcare. You have those 3 things in combination, not one at a time, but all 3. You can compete any place in the world. I know you indicated that we're having a hard time in education in this state. We have to set priorities, literally. We have to figure out how we're going to fund it. We can't do it. We have to think 10 years out. I don't think a year or 2 years out. I think 10 years out all the time, have darn near all of my life. What we have to do is figure out how we're going to gain additional revenue. 1, we may have to borrow the money, and then figure out a payment plan over the next 5 or 10 years to pay the money back. But to jumpstart this economy, which we have to do, this pandemic is going to go to 2022. Once they get shots next year, the vaccines, and then the herd immunity, which is will be sometime this time next year. It will be in the 2022, but by the time we eliminate all the masks in our society and we move on. We have to be up and ready to move at that point in time. We have to start funding the schools now, and like I said, we may have to borrow some of the money to get it done and figure out a payment plan to pay the money back. I'm Jim Glenn. I'm running for state representative. Appreciate your vote.
All right, Jim, you get the next question as well.
Thank you, sir.
I want to talk a little bit about what is been termed the bathroom bills. And for the last few sessions, those types of bills have been filed. I think they have been sponsored by nearly 1/5 of the House, including some local legislators. This despite the fact that business groups have talked about the negative economic impact it can have on a community. So my question is, where do you stand on this specific bill, but even beyond that, do you or would you weigh the concerns of business leaders who warn that such socially divisive bills that can be seen as legalizing discrimination can hurt the state's economy?
I have 2 strengths. 1 is business. Like I said, I managed $45 million in industrial sales. As a young man when I first got married, I was in the industry for my first 15 years of my marriage. My other strength is education. Besides that, I listen. I will go around and listen to the public and have them tell me what they're interested in doing. I have traveled a good part of the world. I've been on 5 continents, 5 of the 7 continents on Earth. In Europe, the bathrooms are shared by men and women, the same bathroom, in a number of countries I've been in. We have to figure out what's important to us. I will listen to the public. They will tell me what they think is important, and I'll respond. Thank you.
DJ Johnson.
I will start off by saying this goes back, I think, to the question you asked previously about the local rule. I think this is more of a local rule issue than it is a state level issue. This is a situation of if we're not careful, the state will try to put a one-size-fits-all solution to an issue that is different from one community to the next. I think it's the community's not only responsibility, but their right to make these decisions. So I have, in the past, I've been more of a proponent for these bills. I've looked at it, and in respect to local laws or local rule, I would prefer to defer to the locals as far as what they want to do with their own communities. However, saying that, I would add that it is a fact that businesses are concerned about diversity and concerned about these issues. I've actually met with business leaders just recently to talk about this exact issue. And what I learned from it was that businesses want to come to communities where there is the diversity. It's up to the community to decide if that's what they want or not.
Okay, DJ, we'll stay with you for the next question. Kentucky's labor participation rate, the number of working age adults actually working, has slipped below 50% in many parts of the state. even before COVID-19. Why do you think so many working age Kentuckians are not working or not looking for work? And what do you think the state can or should do to reverse this trend?
Well, I think we're going to have to look at our unemployment policies. The fact is that we have the most, how do I put this succinctly? We pay more out in unemployment per person than our surrounding states. And so it makes it not lucrative or enticing, but it makes it easier to not work. We've got to not penalize people who need help financially, but we've got to encourage the people who can work to do so. The jobs are out there. There are plenty of jobs. And again, this goes back to, are they trained? Do we have a trained workforce? And that goes back to the community college system that we talked about. We need to do two things. One, encourage people to work, and two, provide the opportunity for them to be trained and prepared to work so that we can increase those numbers.
Jim Glenn?
I have a family of 4. My wife, myself, my 2 children. We have 10 4-year college degrees, all from major universities. We work. My mother's children, my mother's grandchildren, all have college degrees, except for one. Illinois, Wisconsin, Cornell, Kentucky, Maryland. My son's working on a PhD at Michigan State. We believe in work. All of us work. And we have all of our lives. It's a cultural issue. My father sent us all to school, everyone, except for me. What I did, he gave us money to take the bus to school. I walked every day because I was too cheap to spend the money. I kept the money to spend it later on. It's a cultural issue. You have to get people to think. Working is important. It will move you forward. It will solidify your economic situation as you grow older. You can't live on Social Security. It only makes up 40% of the money you need to retire on. The rest of the money has to come from a 401k or a pension. You have to explain that to people up front, because some people think, well, I'll just wait to Social Security later on and make it. You can't make it on Social Security. You do that and you'll starve. We have to get people to think differently. I teach in my classroom. I've been teaching my classroom for years. And my students are now starting to turn. They said, what do I have to do to make money? And I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim. Well, you get to take the next question, which will actually be our last question as well.
Awesome.
Okay, so the last few years, I think that the perception has been that Owensboro has lagged behind other areas in terms of influence in Frankfort, state board appointments, funding for local projects. Do you think that's a fair assessment? If not, why? And if so, what will you do to address these issues?
The state of Kentucky has 6 cities, 6 counties that generate 50% of all the revenue for the state. Owensboro is one of those 6 cities that generates the money for the state. The other ones are Paducah, Bowling Green, Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky. We handle a lot of money. I know some people have an image that we are behind and things of that nature. In my first 10 years in the legislature, I poured back into this county $171 million in road money. That generates jobs, and it helps expand the economy locally. We are doing very well as a community. It's just sometimes you look at New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and you say you want to be like them. Well, they're multi-million-dollar cities. We're doing very well at our size. We have to keep moving. We have to continue increasing our education. We have to continue diversifying our economy. Tommy Thompson, myself, and the senator at that time got $2 million together and gave it to Phil Packing Company to generate hot dog lines here. We bought 45 jobs back. I took a class at Iowa State University in hot dog manufacturing and ham manufacturing, just so I can understand what Phil Packing Company does and do a much better job as a state representative. Took a class at Harvard in marketing, so I could do a better job for our society, for our community. My job is to make sure we're generating more jobs in this community, and I'm out of time.
All right, DJ Johnson.
The short answer to your question is yes, we are underrepresented in Frankfort. When I went to Frankfort my first term as state representative, I was stunned by how Owensboro and Davis County and the northwest part of the state is an afterthought in Frankfort. It was stunning to me. And I worked very hard for 2 years to change that. And we're making progress. And I'll point out, within our region, we have Suzanne Miles as a state representative. She's also a member of the House Republican Party leadership. So she is a majority leader in Frankfort. So we're making progress. But that doesn't change the fact that Owensboro needs real representation. Owensboro needs somebody that's willing to go to work in Frankfort, show up for everything that needs to be showed up for, go to the committees, do the work before the committees, know the bills that are going to be passed, and be ready to vote on them. And then when it's time to vote, vote on them. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work myself ragged. I will work as hard as I possibly can for the people of Owensboro to make a better Owensboro. It's critical that we stop being underrepresented in Frankfort.
All right, thank you for answering those questions. Now we'll move into the closing statements. Again, 60 seconds. DJ Johnson, you'll start us.
I'll just start off by saying this. I think Owensboro is the greatest place in the country to live, but I want to make a better Owensboro. And I know that we can do that by just what I said. When we're properly represented in Frankfort, and I don't mean have a representative in Frankfort, but when we're properly represented in Frankfort, we're going to be able to do much more to make Owensboro a better place. I absolutely believe in safety and security of our city. I absolutely believe in taking care of our children. I'm going to make child welfare one of my high priorities. And I believe in making sure that our elderly have prescription medicines that they can afford. All of those things can be done if we work in Frankfort. And I want to go back there and represent you. My name is DJ Johnson. I am a candidate for state representative for the 13th District. I am asking for your vote.
And Jim Glenn?
Bottom line, I'm running for office because I want to give back to society. I've lived here a number of years, and everyone in my family has given back to society. We've sat on committees in our community to help generate money for the people in this community, to make this a much better community. I went to a doctor's office once for a physical, and standing behind the doctor was a student of mine. I said, "Ma'am, I know you." She said, "Yeah, I took 5 classes with you." I said, "Ma'am, I don't teach science." She said, "I took your business classes, then I went to EKU." I said, "When did you become a nurse?" She pulled her coat back. She was a medical doctor. She said, "Everything you taught me at OCC worked in medical school." I had 2 students come back from Tennessee. They called me up on the phone and said, "You gonna be there a while?" I said, "Yeah." They showed up, they said, "We took your classes 12 years ago." One of the students said, "I married the girl in the class against the wall." She believes in everything I'm saying right now. That is, what you taught us still works. I use that in Frankfort. I use it in the state legislature. I use it in the city. My job is to give back. My name is Jim Glenn, State Representative, 13th District. Appreciate your vote.
Okay, that will conclude our forum for the House 13th District. I want to thank both of you guys for being here. Appreciate it. Very informative. It was refreshing to ask questions and get real answers and informative answers, and I think that the viewers will appreciate that as well. So thank you for being here. And then thank you, Candace. Thank you, Bart. Thank the staff of the chamber who have put this together, and all of you who are watching at home, thanks for viewing, and remember to vote.
First of all, Matt Francis, thank you again, sir, for your fine work as a moderator. You've been doing this for many years, and you're a great asset to our community year-round, but also at election time, so thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for being engaged and for participating in this forum as spectators. Now you need to go act on what you've heard and be an engaged voter. Leadership is rewarding, but it's never easy, and it is certainly not easy to put yourself out in the public to be voted on. So I want to say thank you to all of our candidates for having the courage and the commitment to our community and our region to hold themselves up for public office. So when you see them, whether you vote for them or not, thank them, because it's a critical piece of the growth of our community. So thank you very much.